So let's just get straight to it. Where do the Boston Celtics and Jaylen Brown go from here? So obviously Jaylen Brown and his camp are going to be asking for the Supermax after an All-NBA season. But is it set in stone that Boston will be offering this? And are we even sure that Jaylen Brown fully deserves it yet? So I know that intro was pretty harsh, but today we're going to be having the uncomfortable conversations that nobody really wants to have. And that is, how much is Jaylen Brown really worth to an NBA team in 2023? Now, I know a lot of Jaylen Brown and Celtics fans are going to attack me for questioning Jaylen Brown's worth. So let's just start off with the positives. Jaylen Brown is one of the best shot makers in the NBA. Looking at the stats, Jaylen Brown averages 27 points per game on 58 true shooting, but he also shoots 35% from 3 on a high volume and 70% at the rim, showing that he's a very premier scorer and probably the best second option in the NBA. The ability to get to his spots without needing much of a handle or dribbles at all is really what's enticing about Jaylen Brown's scoring. A simple hesitation into a pound, and using that screen perfectly, Brown gets open. Thanks to Brown's skills and strength and athleticism, he doesn't need much of a handle to score the ball. Simply put, Jaylen Brown's skills as a scorer are unprecedented. Apart from the low volume 3 in the right corner, this shot chart tells you everything you need to know about Jaylen Brown's scoring. And what makes it all work is his readiness to play both on and off the ball as a scorer. It's nuances like these where Jaylen Brown is leaking in transition that really set him apart from other second options who are content on playing on the ball only. Jaylen Brown is probably the best scoring second option in the association. Now that I've made it very clear I'm not a Jaylen Brown hater, let's talk about why I'd be concerned about giving him $290 million. So to get the elephant out of the room, the handle is probably the worst I've ever seen from an All-NBA level guard. Heading into your 7th season, most would expect you'd overcome things like teams forcing you to drive left. However, when Jaylen Brown gets this, he puts up 8 turnovers. And I mean, the Celtics' issues in these series was as simple as it gets. Jaylen Brown can't dribble the ball with his left hand. The fact that Boston got this game within 7 is actually pretty remarkable considering his inability as a passer and as a left-hand driver. I mean, some of these plays are just ridiculous, like he's dribbling the ball off a big man's foot. So yeah, to sum it up, the handle is a huge concern, especially considering this is year 7 of Brown's career. And to make it even worse, his tunnel vision might be just as bad. This tunnel vision creates even more issues, not just for Brown, but the entire Celtics roster. His drives will often end in bad passes, or at times even offensive fouls, all because he has his head down. And all of these are fundamental problems, and these are the reason that Jaylen Brown ultimately will struggle when Tatum is off the court. Even impact metrics say that the Celtics were actually +8 with JB off the court. And even in the regular season, there's a little difference with him off and on the floor. And yeah, of course, these shouldn't be used as gospel, but they do give a good indicator on how bad Jaylen Brown is as a playmaker. So where do the Celtics take this? Well, first, let's look at other players around the league that are getting supermax or max money. So taking a look around, you'll see that the premier players obviously are going to be on the top of this list, like Jokic, Giannis, and Steph Curry. Some of the outliers though are Bradley Beal and Karl-Anthony Towns. And what you'll notice is these are the guys who most recently got paid, and these are already going down as some of the worst contracts in the NBA. So now the question is to you guys. Where do you think Jaylen Brown is in the league? Do you think he's in the Bradley Beal, Karl-Anthony Towns second option tier, or do you think he's in the Steph Curry, Giannis, Jokic tier? Because if you think he's in that tier on the top, then yeah, you pay him that supermax money. But let's be realistic for a second here. When comparing Jaylen Brown to guys of that Bradley Beal and Karl-Anthony Towns nature, what does he do production-wise that is so much greater than these people? And I actually want to focus in on that one comparison to Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is widely known as one of the most overpaid players in the NBA due to that contract last year, and when you compare him to Jaylen Brown, where is the drop-off in talent and production? They're both elite 3-level scorers, and while Bradley Beal doesn't have the on-ball defense Jaylen Brown has, he has playmaking that completely surpasses what Jaylen Brown can provide there. So if you're one of the people that call Bradley Beal overpaid, how can you justify paying Jaylen Brown the same amount of money or more? And while you may argue, oh well, Jaylen Brown is a second option, he doesn't get as many touches. Why do you think he is the second option? Why do you think he's not getting as many touches? If Jaylen Brown was capable of producing at a tier 1 rate, why are the Boston Celtics better with him off the floor in the playoffs? The reason I'm so adamant about not paying Jaylen Brown is this discourse that has been dated back since last year when they made that finals run. For some reason, people were just comfortable with putting Jaylen Brown in the category where you can't trade him for Kevin Durant. Even looking at this playoff series, imagine those 29 points per game Kevin Durant's providing on plus efficiency on the Boston Celtics. They might have swept the Miami Heat with him on the team instead of Jaylen Brown. And this all stems back to when people were saying, oh, Jaylen Brown might be as talented as Tatum if he got the shots. Jaylen Brown has had so many times where Tatum is not playing or injured to show that he's the guy, and he's failed every time. Take this last Heat game, Game 7 for example. Jaylen Brown wobbled with an injury, and what does Jaylen Brown do? Completely disappear. The point of this video isn't to bash Jaylen Brown and make him seem like some trash player, but it's to set the standard straight that Jaylen Brown isn't going to be a first option on a championship team. He's just not. Like I said earlier in the video, he's the best second option scorer in the NBA. But just because he's the best second option scorer doesn't make these holes in his game less apparent. And if Jaylen Brown gets paid and suddenly takes a playmaking and handle leap, then good for him and good for the Celtics. They saw something that we didn't. But from what we've seen so far, what Jaylen Brown has produced in the playoffs and the regular season does not line up with getting paid almost $300 million for 5 years. So I've made my point very clear. Now you may be asking, Sam, what would you do? And to be completely honest, I don't think I have the answers.
You ain't got the answers, Sway!
But what I can do is I can provide some suggestions that may be better than the alternative to paying him a supermax. So honestly, these aren't all super realistic, but these are just the best outcomes that the Celtics could get for Jaylen Brown. I actually do think that this Portland trade with the Celtics for Damian Lillard and Jaylen Brown is actually the best outcome for both teams. So let's start with the Celtics. Obviously, they're in a win now situation. You have Tatum, who is progressing as he's aging. You have Al Horford, who's nearing retirement. Derek White, very good player. A bunch of role guys who are very good at what they do, and they clearly just need a little bit more star power to get over the hump and win the finals. Adding the top 10 level talent in Damian Lillard in a position that they clearly need, which is playmaking and scoring, is 100% the best possible thing to add to the Celtics roster. They already have the perimeter and interior defense in Rob Williams, Al Horford, Derek White, and Jason Tatum even. And now they're going to add a guy who can not only play off the ball like Brown can, but can also shoot like the best in the league and also play make when Jason Tatum is subbed out. This is 100% what would take them to title contenders in my opinion. And for the Blazers, they can still compete with the roster they have if they trade for Jaylen Brown, and he's 26 years old. So not only do they move on from an aging Damian Lillard, they also get another youthful player who can kind of be a veteran role, who's been to the finals for the guys like Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons, and also provide much needed defense, which those two guys don't provide. Not only that, Jaylen Brown can show us if he's really made for it and be the #1 scoring option over in Portland. So not only does it work for both teams, it also works for Jaylen Brown specifically. So the next trade I got is one that will be sending Jaylen Brown up north in exchange for OG Anunoby and someone of the likes like Chris Boucher or Gary Trent, something like that. Now this trade isn't as glamorous as the previous one, but it allows Boston to explore free agency for some added scoring while also giving them a huge boost to their perimeter defense and shooting. It also gives Jason Tatum the keys to the offense completely, and he won't need to share as many touches like he was before, which for Boston should be a positive. And for the Toronto Raptors, this one is obvious. You need more star power, and Jaylen Brown provides just that. With Siakam, they could honestly compete for a playoff spot and maybe go deep if they add more in free agency. And like I said earlier, none of these are set in stone options. These are just some suggestions I would provide if they look to trade Jaylen Brown. So now the question is yours. What do you do if you're Boston's general manager? Do you trade Jaylen Brown and look to get like a Damian Lillard or an OG Anunoby piece? Or do you just pay Jaylen Brown the money as the salary cap does go up by year and just hope that he improves on these fundamental issues and you can run it back with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the whole crew and get one step closer and win the NBA Finals? Let me know in the comments down below what you would do. Please subscribe, like the video, share with a friend if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.